Good evening, everybody. This is a meeting of the Tinton Falls Borough Council being held April 5th, 2022. This meeting is hereby called to order. Would the clerk please read the open public meeting statement?
Pursuant to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board at Borough Hall and by notification to the Asbury Park Press, the Newark Star Ledger, and the New Coaster at least 48 hours prior to the meeting, and filing with the Borough Clerk all on January 4th, 2022.
Thank you. May I ask the clerk to call the roll?
Mrs. Clay?
Here.
Dr. Dobrin?
Here.
Mr. Manginelli?
Here.
Mr. Nessie?
Here.
Ms. Buckley?
Here. At this time, I would like to invite everyone to join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There is one set of meeting minutes for approval this evening. May I have a motion to approve the February 15th, 2022 regular meeting minutes?
Motion. Second.
Thank you. Thanks for the second. Mr. Manginelli, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Clay?
Yes.
Dr. Dobrin?
Yes.
Mr. Manginelli?
Yes.
Mr. Nessie?
Yes.
Ms. Buckley?
Yes. Before we move on to reports, Mayor Perillo has asked that I read the following proclamation for Arbor Day. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other products. And whereas Tinton Falls has been recognized by as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue its tree planting ways. Now, therefore, I, Vito Perillo, Mayor of Tinton Falls, do hereby proclaim April 29th as Arbor Day, and the proclamation was signed by the mayor. Next, we have our special 2022 budget presentation. If you are on, or if you're watching us right now via YouTube, the budget presentation has been posted on the news and announcements right on the homepage. So since you're probably gonna have a hard time seeing this on the YouTube, I would ask you can open it up on your computers and follow along with us here in the room. That'll turn it over to our CFO, Mr. Fallon.
Thank you, Council President, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight, and I'm pleased to be presenting the Mayor's 2022 municipal budget. The first pie chart indicates where Tinton Falls tax dollars go. This pie chart shows what percentage each entity represents of the tax dollars collected. So if we started from the top, we have the county budget represents about 15% of the Tinton Falls tax dollars. The elementary school budget, 37%. The high school budget, 21%. The local municipal budget, 23%. The municipal open space, 1%. And the fire districts, 3%. The next pie chart is pretty much the same pie chart, just have exploded the portion that is related to the municipal share. So the local municipal budget and municipal open space tax. And that's the tax that this budget that we're presenting tonight really has control over. So what do the residents get for their 24% of their taxes? So amongst others, but these are the major ones, you get essential services, infrastructure and roadway improvements, and maintenance, police and public safety, public works, solid waste removal and disposal, engineering and planning, public health, municipal court and justice, tax collection distribution, property assessment, registrar, zoning code and housing, emergency notification systems, curbside recycling. and also quality of life services, parks, recreation programs, playing fields, summer camp, open space acquisition, open space maintenance, affordable housing, historic preservation, and the Borough Library. So results of 2021 operations as it relates to the budget. So the Borough of Tinton Falls budget structure continues to result in a positive position in available cash and reserves, which adds to our ability to stabilize the tax rate and weather economic downturns. Percent of fund balance held in reserve remains strong, increasing slightly from 30% to 35% of budget. The Borough regenerated 134% of the fund balance utilized in the 2021 budget. Our revenues exceeded our targets by 19%, aiding in the regeneration of surplus that was utilized in the budget. 2019 through 2022 budgets combined have $2,477,870 remaining under the 2% levy cap. This equates to approximately 5.8 cents on the tax rate. What that means is that's taxes that could have been raised under the state levy cap law that were not. The tax collection rate of the borough remains high at 99.18% of taxes levied, which has stabilized our reserve for uncollected taxes at $797,000. Generally, the overall budget structure is fiscally sound and responsible plan. The budget contains no gimmicks or structural issues that would have to be dealt with later. The budget provides necessary funding for all municipal services and for continued capital investment in the borough's infrastructure, parks, and equipment. The budget allows for the regeneration of a majority of the surplus that is being utilized. Revenues, the borough continues to be conservative in its revenue projections, and under the revenue section, the state aid will remain the same for the 13th straight year. On the appropriation side of the budget, total operating expenses have increased by a marginal 2.08%, exclusive of health benefit costs, which increased by 2.14% of operations. Total budgeted salary and wages, a component of operating expenses, have increased by 1.23%. The budget, as presented, funds salaries for all departments and services at current staffing levels, and the mayor has provided contingent funding in the budget for the hiring of additional police officers above the amount currently approved by the borough ordinance, if that is deemed necessary. Total debt service has remained stable from 2021, and the borough continues to employ a hybrid strategy for its capital needs. The borough appropriates all non-road capital improvements directly in the budget and authorizes general debt only for the road improvement programs. This strategy has resulted in a reduction in the borough's net debt and in long-term borrowing costs. So this is just a summary of revenues. I'll get a little more detailed on the next slide, but these are our overall revenue sections. So under state aid, as we discussed, that pretty much is staying the same as the previous year. Municipal revenue, and again, I'll get more detailed on the next slide, is increasing by about $396,000 or 8%. Delinquent taxes, which are taxes from the previous year's levy that we haven't collected, so we're going to collect them in 22, have gone down about $200,000. That's because we collected more of our levy in 21 than we did in 2020. Fund balance, we're using $4,460,000 this year compared to $3,950,000 in the previous year, an increase of $510,000. And there's the amount to be raised by taxation. So the amount to be raised by taxation proposed in this budget is $16,460,919, an increase of $307,000 from the $16,153,346 that was levied in 2021. And that's a 1.9% increase in the amount to be raised by taxation. And on the bottom part of that chart is the annual tax comparison. So In 2022, our assessed values are $4,283,845,000, up from $3,671,055,000 the previous year. It's about a $612 million increase, or 16.69% of our assessed values. 70 million of that $612 million increase is due to new ratables that came online over the last year. And a majority of that increase, though, is due to, or 543 million of that increase is due to an increase in existing assessments based on market value adjustments done each year by the tax assessor. So as you can see, under those assessed values and the amount to be raised by taxation, the municipal tax rate will go down from 44 cents in 2021 to 38.4 cents in 2022, a reduction of 5.6 cents, or about 12.73%. Here's a pie chart of where the municipal revenues come from. So our total revenues, as you see on the bottom left-hand side, are $28,183,557. Or I should say those are the total revenues anticipated in this budget. If we start from the top, we're utilizing, under surplus, we're utilizing $4,460,000 in surplus, or about 47% of available, which is 2% less than the 49% that we utilized in 2021. It's important to maintain healthy reserves for cash flow, maintaining a strong bond rating, which reduces borrowing costs and protections against economic downturns. And I will discuss fund balance trends over the next several slides. Under local revenues there, the $1,162,000, that's various fees, various licenses, fees and permits, court fines and costs, interest and costs on taxes and deposits, commercial garbage fees. State aid, we had mentioned that earlier, that's $1,490,000. That's remained the same for the 13th straight year. In 2009, it was reduced from $1.9 million, which actually at that time funded 9% of the total budget, to this current level of $1,490,000, which now only funds 5% of our current budget. So while the costs for goods, services, personnel, and benefits continue to grow, state aid has not grown with it. Under shared services, right under the state aid there, the borough receives a combined total of $350,000 from Eatontown and Monmouth Beach under a shared service agreement for municipal court services. And we also receive about $63,000 from Keyport as we provide a tax utility collector and treasurer to them under a shared service agreement as well. Other special items of revenue of the $3,696,000, that consists of our host benefit fees, cable and Fios franchise fees, hotel occupancy tax, operating grants, our pilot with Commvault, and in this year also there's some additional revenue in there for coronavirus revenue losses from the state and local fiscal recovery funds. Delinquent taxes, that's our 2021 taxes to be collected in 22. And then the big piece of the pie there is the amount to be raised by taxation, which is 50% of the revenue anticipated. This reflects a 1.9%, as we indicated earlier, in that revenue, and that is $525,000 less than what would be allowable under the 2% levy cap for 2022. Historical municipal fund balance, this shows a positive trend from 2016 through 2021. That's year-end municipal fund balances due to certainly some responsible budgeting practices by the governing body. Borough fund balance data, this is just another way to look at fund balance. The bar here, the gray bar shows what the fund balance is at the end of the previous year. The middle bar shows what we used to balance the following year's budget, and then the bar all the way to the right shows what was left in fund balance. So you can see that's a very positive trend as well. We've increased our fund balance. We're using a little bit more this year than we did last year, but we're maintaining a reasonable percentage. This is another fund balance chart. This is non-utilized fund balance as a percentage of budget. The more non-utilized fund balance the borough has on hand, the better certainly we are positioned to manage emergencies and unexpected economic issues and to stabilize municipal taxes. So you can see that's a pretty very good chart in terms of the trend here. And we're maintaining about the same as we did in 2020, a little bit higher in terms of a percentage of the budget in the amount of fund balance that we're maintaining as a percentage of the budget. So summary of appropriations. This is a summary of the major categories of appropriations compared to 2021. So salaries and wages, we had kind of touched on that already. So 2022 budget, budget's $11,722,000 in salaries and wages compared to $11,579,000 the previous year, a 1.23%. And again, the budget for salaries and wages for all departments are at current staffing levels, and the mayor, has again provided contingent funding in the budget under the police for the hiring of additional police officers above the amount currently approved by borough ordinance if it's found to be necessary. Other expenses there have increased 8.47%. I'll discuss this on the next slide, but that's primarily due to an increase in health benefit costs. Capital improvements have pretty much, these are again direct budgeted capital improvements, pretty much stayed stable from the previous year. Debt service has remained stable. Statutory expenditures are up by $154,000. That is pension costs, which I'll discuss in the next slide. And then the reserve for uncollected taxes is fairly stable, an increase of about $31,000. These are the this is kind of a small chart, might be hard to see. But this is the 2022 budget appropriations by function. As you can see on the right, the total appropriations are the same as our total revenues, $28,183,557. So obviously it's a balanced budget. If the total appropriations in the budget are $1,357,000 under the state appropriation cap limits. If we were to start at the Public Works here on the bottom, and I'll work counterclockwise from there. And I'd also like, before I start, to just specifically mention that the specific function costs do not include benefits for those functions, as those are budgeted as required under separate appropriations. So for instance, Public Works here really includes the salary and wages and other expenses for those Public Works functions, but it doesn't include the health insurance for Public Works workers or the pension costs for Public Work workers. You'd have to do some more math for that. But so the Public Works takes up about 14% of our budget, or $4 million, a little over $4 million. And that consists of our streets and roads, our sanitation, our central maintenance, which is our mechanics department, our buildings and grounds, and our Community Services Act reimbursements. Next to that is our public safety, which is 22% of the total budget. That includes the police, emergency management, aid to our EMS squads, fire prevention, and our municipal prosecutor. Above that is employee group health insurance. This appropriation has increased about $420,000 from 2021. However, it is still less than what was budgeted in 2018, so the borough has done a pretty good job in controlling health insurance. The borough is a member of the New Jersey State Health Benefits Plan, and this appropriation is net of $663,000 in contributions that we collect from our employees towards their health insurance. Above that is insurance other than health, which is liability, workers' compensation, and unemployment. This is relatively stable with a slight increase of about $45,000 from 2021. Above that is the land use, code enforcement, and UCC, comprised of departments of planning, zoning, housing, code enforcement, and uniform construction code inspections. Takes up about 2% of our budget. Above that is our general government, which accounts for about 9%, and that's appropriations to provide general services, administration, clerk, mayor and council, finance, tax collection, tax assessing, purchasing, law, engineering. Next to that is the reserve for uncollected taxes, statutory amount that we need to appropriate for uncollected taxes to ensure that we have the cash flow to meet all tax requirements to other entities. Because we're collecting taxes for all of the other entities, we're required to appropriate this. Like the county, the school, they don't need to appropriate this. Debt service, that's stable. Just a very slight increase of about $2,000 from 2021. Of the $2,506,000 in debt service, $2,070,000 of it is principal payments on our debt, so it actually reduces our debt. $436,000 is interest cost. Debt service remains low at approximately 9% of total budget appropriations. As a comparison, the state of New Jersey appropriates over 33% of their annual budget in debt service. Capital improvements, these are account for about 3%. Again, these are direct capital improvements funded through the budget in accordance with the capital program, which we'll discuss later in the presentation. And other costs there are accumulated leave compensation, our length of service awards program for our EMS squads, stormwater, and our operating grants. That's about 2% of the budget. And then we have our shared services. We budget 3 shared services here. The borough receives from Monmouth County dispatch services and 911 services, which are budgeted here. And we provide services for a shared court to Eatontown and Monmouth Beach, and some financial services to Keyport. So there is offsetting revenue of $413,700 for both of those shared services. Social Security, about 3% of the budget. That's the borough's share of Social Security costs. And you have our pension costs there, which account for 9% of the budget, $2,527,000. This includes the police retirement system of $1,701,348 and the public employees retirement system of $817,566 and $9,000 for our deferred comp retirement program. That's a total increase of $154,141, or 6.5%. over the 2021 budget. To put this in relation to previous years, in 2014, those total appropriations totaled $1,380,369. So in just 8 years, from 2014 to 2022, the total pension appropriations have increased by 83%, or $1,147,545. So again, this is just one of the budget issues that municipalities are dealing with that is somewhat, a creature of the state of New Jersey. Then you have utility expenses and fuel. These are all your regular utilities, including street lighting and fuel for our motor vehicles. That accounts for about 3% of the budget. And you have your court and public defender appropriations for our justice services and our public defender. Accounts for about 1% of the budget. And then you have your parks and recreations right under that, right here, which is 3%. And that includes your division of recreation and maintenance of parks. It does not include the maintenance and improvements provided through the borough's open space trust fund. Health and Human Services would be the last piece there, and that's primarily the Division of Health, which we're a member of the Monmouth County Regional Health Commission. and also our animal control services, and that accounts for 1%. The borough's net statutory debt from 2014 through 2022, based upon this proposed budget, the borough has reduced net debt by $7.56 million, or 35%, from $21.37 million to $13.81 million. This equates to an average reduction in net debt of almost $950,000 per year over the past 8 years. Credit and bond rating. The borough received an upgrade in our credit rating to AA1 from Moody's in 2020. This is just one notch below the highest and best possible rate of AAA. I'll read those real quick. Moody's Investors Service has upgraded the Borough of Tinton Falls, New Jersey's general obligation unlimited tax rating to AA1 from AA2. Concurrently, we have assigned a AA1 rating to the borough's general obligation refunding bonds series 2020. And then they also said the upgrade to AA1 reflects the borough's increasingly strong finances. The rating also incorporates its above-average resident wealth and income, modest debt, favorable location, and above-average pension burden. Having an excellent bond rating helps the borough obtain lower interest rates, and when going to market to issue bonds or notes, which in turn reduces our total debt service requirements in the budget. Excuse me. During 2021, the borough's AA1 rating helped us obtain a very low 0.35% net interest rate on the borough's interest or issuance of bond anticipation notes. This is a bar graph showing the municipal tax rate over the past 6 years, including the 2022 estimated tax rate. So it indicates, a fairly stable tax rate, and then a decrease in tax rate over the past 4 years or so. Open Space Trust Fund, I'm sure this is very hard to see. Unfortunately, it's too small. But so this schedule shows actual revenues and expenditures. For 2017 through 2000, losing my voice here, sorry, through 2021, and the proposed budget for 2022. So this will be, actually, it's coming back. So we start the year out with about $111,000 in the Open Space Trust Fund. We expect revenues of $973,000. And we expect expenditures of around $1,055,000 to end the year somewhere around $30,000. So we're using a majority of what we're collecting this year. A lot of it's going towards development of land for recreation purposes. We budgeted $130,000 to offset our maintenance of open space, as well as $100,000 for equipment that's involved with the maintenance of open space. And then we have $150,000 for our Waltz Park improvements design, which our engineer will discuss, as well as Wardell Park improvements, $75,000, and Hoxton Park improvements, $444,000. And then there's some small amount of debt service included here that has to do with debt involved in open space acquisitions. So, and the municipal open space tax rate is 2.25 cents per $100 as approved by voter referendum. The rate does not change from year to year. Thanks, yeah, I know. I'm trying. Yeah, I appreciate that, sorry. So we'll go to the sewer utility budget, and I'm almost done, so I'll be ready to turn it over to the engineer in a minute. The sewer utility budget has decreased slightly due to a reduction in treatment costs to the Two Rivers Water Reclamation Authority, and also a reduction in the amount of capital outlay, which the engineer will discuss during his presentation. The utility is debt-free and self-supporting. It's been debt-free now for 4 or 5 years. So all of our capital improvements we pay for in cash in our sewer utility. It's very healthy. Capital projects overview. Total planned projects in 2022 are $2,271,300, consisting of $1,982,500 in general improvements and $288,800 in sewer utility improvements. We're making use of about $529,000 in grant funds, and also we have $1,104,000 in direct operating budget capital appropriations. The borough's certainly very proud of the $1,104,000 budgeted in capital improvement section of the current and sewer operating budgets, as these appropriations help reduce future debt issuance and further strengthen the borough's financial position and budget structure. So this is the 2022 capital budget. You can see we budgeting $1,982,500, and to the right of that are the funding sources. $815,500 is directly budgeted in the budget. $217,500 is coming from a grant for the library. We have capital reserves for the library of $150,000. And there's other funds being provided by the library of $67,500 for that project of $435,000. And we're also providing $732,000 in open space trust funds to support the capital budget in 2022. And as you can see, there will be, it's proposed that there will be zero debt authorized in 2022. Our sewer capital improvements, again, Tom will discuss this a little bit more, but we're appropriating $288,800, and it's all being funded by the sewer operating budget. So that's pretty much it for me. I'd like to turn it over to the borough's engineer, Tom Neff, and he'll review the capital program in more detail. Thank you.
Great job, Tom. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. All right, so I'll just go through some of the capital projects as Tom indicated. So annually, one of the biggest ticket items is the road program. So as a reminder, the borough does have 85 miles of road throughout town. It is a significant length of roads that we try to keep up with. We typically do a large multi-million-dollar road program every 2 years to group it together and get some of the larger contractors and the bulk volume pricing on this. So for this year's project, it was actually designed in 2021 and is currently out on the street being advertised for bids. We've had a lot of interest, and we anticipate opening bids next Tuesday and awarding a contract at the next council meeting on April 19th to get this project started this spring and summer. So as this project, it includes 11 roads, just about 3 miles. So the roads are Glenwood Drive, Riverview Drive, Fairfield Drive, William Street, Terry Lane, Orchard Street, Wellington Drive, Lindell Lane, Garden Place, the north section of Wardell Road from Shafto to Maywood Run, and the 3 Gilbert Streets. And Gilbert Street is where we got a DOT municipal aid grant for about $311,000. That grant was actually received after the funding was put in place for this. So that's essentially gives us a little bit of flexibility. If fuel and asphalt prices skyrocket for some reason with what's going on, we have a little bit of flexibility there. If we find we need to do a little bit of extra work on a road, or if not, we have the option to pay down some of the debt potentially with that additional grant funding. So here's just some other pictures of the road, so you can see clearly that these roads do need to be paved. We have Orchard Street on the left, River Edge Road on the right, which is actually just a gravel road. So you can imagine how difficult it is for DPW to maintain that, especially in the winter with plowing on the gravel. And then we just have Cherry Lane and William Street, some other examples up at the north end of town. You can see all the cracking, utility trenches, and pothole repairs. In addition to the road project, we have the sidewalk project that is currently ongoing with Your Way Construction. In the fall, they wrapped up the Fox Chase sidewalks, and they're actively working on Shrewsbury Avenue, starting down at Sycamore, working their way up to Newman Springs Road. So we'll have a full continuous ADA accessible project. Depending on weather, we anticipate that wrapping up in about a month. We've had some cold spells recently and a bit of rain delayed them, but they do anticipate, like I said, about one more month's worth of work to finish that. In addition to roads, another large item is all of the park work. We've been doing a big push, thanks to the boroughs, what they've put into this. We've been able to do a lot of work for the parks and the residents. The first one here is Sycamore Recreation Complex. This is actively under construction with Precise Construction. If you go out there, you can see the basketball court in the back that sat vacant for many, many years, has been resurfaced with new equipment. We're just waiting on some warmer weather, and we will do the color coding and the striping on that court. A new restroom building has been roughed in at the old tennis court area. So you can see that. It's not operational yet, but you can see what it looks like. It is out there. 2 large pavilion structures, about 40 by 60, will be put in that same area by tennis courts. Those will be available for use by residents, as well as the rec program in the summer. The existing pavilion up by the main parking lot is being expanded. You can see some of the new columns have been installed to expand the overhang, provide additional space up there. The playground was expanded to include swing sets, and the rubber safety surface is in place. And then we still have some walkway lighting and landscaping to be installed this spring as well. Hockoxen Park is another project that is split into 2 actually. As part of the proposed budget, there's funding included for new Musco lights at field number 3. The light pole, one of them had fallen down last year, and we realized that the other ones needed to be replaced. So those were taken down to prevent any other further damage. So there's going to be new Musco lights at field 3. That also includes a lighting upgrades at the other fields for the controls. Right now they have to be manually operated out of the control box, whereas now they'll be wireless control through an app for DPW or Rec Department or Little League. And then with the current project that's going on right now, that's with Short Top Construction. Their main push is for field number 1. They are expanding that from a 4660 to a convertible field that can also use 5070 size. They're also regrading. If you've been out there, the third base side and the left field side had some significant grading issues out there. It was very uneven, significant drop-offs. So they're regrading that. They're doing some new curb and sidewalk improvements to the upgrade or to the entrance. The old storage buildings have been removed. The new storage building equipment is in the parking lot, and they'll work on getting that installed. So we have 1 new storage building instead of the 3 old small ones. And then there'll be a lightning detection and warning system put in place on the concession building. At Riverdale West Park, if you go out there now, you can see that the basketball court was reconstructed. Again, we just need to color code it this spring. The parking lot was just recently repaved. And then we are going to be putting in all new playground equipment at this park. What you see on this screen here is actually what is going in. So you can see it looks like a pretty nice setup out there, a good variety of equipment. Liberty Park, again, basketball courts being upgraded there. Some new walkways around the area. The playground that's in the back of the park near the softball field, that is getting replaced. adding the rubber safety surface. Again, what you see on the screen is actually a rendering of what's going in. This one's a nice, cool, it's really tall structure, something a little different. And then the big thing is also the dog park that we previously got a county open space grant for. So that's being expanded, putting in 2 separate areas for the different sized dogs and adding all the little dog amenities, the hoops, the jumps, the ramps, different things like that for the dogs to play on. Yeah. Wardell Park, the main improvements were all completed last year. In this year's budget, we are including some funds for some additional landscaping on the street side of the pickleball and tennis courts, just to provide a little bit of extra buffer. Going to be adding a shade structure or 2, some additional tables, just based on the use that we're getting out there, some of the requests we've received from the players out there. So that's all included in this budget. And then also is the design of a new restroom building. So what you see on the screen is actually what's at Sycamore. That's the new one that went in there. So it'd be something similar to that at Wardell. So we would work on the design for that. Part of that project would be all new water and sewer extensions and a pump station, because there are currently no water or sewer utilities in Wardell Road in that area. So we'd have to extend them from Appaloosa. And then the final park project is Waltz. This is the property down by Shark River Road, south end of town. Over the last few years, the borough has acquired 2 different parcels, a little over 60 acres in size. The most recent one was the old homestead, we call it, where the former resident lived, closest to Shark River Road. So that will give us direct access from Shark River Road instead of having to go through Thresher Court like we previously envisioned. So with this year's budget, we would include survey, design, and permitting to get this project rolling. Out here, not looking to do anything too intense because we do realize it's right near some residential properties. So it's more of a passive area. We'll do walking trails all throughout the site, a playground, fishing platform at the pond, and just a similar restroom building. And finally, we have the sewer projects. Historically, we've been spending a little bit more money because we've had to upgrade all of the pump stations over the years, but we are just about caught up with those. So we don't need to spend quite as much on the pump stations. We're just doing some smaller upgrades at the Hovnanian station to upgrade the controls. We are going to start doing a new project in the borough, something that hasn't been done in quite a while, at least to my knowledge, is to start actually inspecting all of the sewer mains. Some were put in back in the 40s or 50s in the older sections of town. Most of the other areas were done in the 70s, so we want to start running cameras down those, inspecting those, checking for I&I, which is what we call inflow and infiltration. If there's any leaks in the joints, any cracks in the pipes, anything coming through the manholes. The more rainwater or groundwater that gets into these pipes, we just have to pay to treat clean water essentially. So we don't want to have to do that. So we'll start investigating those pipes, kind of be a multi-year, multi-phase project. And then also for DPW is included the acquisition of a manhole cutter, which is essentially a big attachment that they can put on their equipment to replace the manhole lids. If you see any driving around that are covered in asphalt, that are maybe low, that are bouncing, this will allow DPW to replace those much easier and faster than they've been able to in the past. And I'll turn it back over to Tom to wrap it up.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you. This is the budget timeline. Expect introduction tonight, April 5th. The budget document certainly will be posted on our website, will be published in summary. The budget presentation will also be on our website. And statutorily, you're required at least 28 days between the introduction and the public hearing on the budget. So the public hearing on the budget will be scheduled for 2 meetings from now, Tuesday, May 3rd. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you both to Mr. Neff and Mr. Fallon. That was an excellent comprehensive presentation. And I just want to give kudos to you both for putting this all together. And just in general for the budget, for answering all of our questions the past couple of weeks. Greatly appreciate it. With that, we will move on to the rest of the reports. And we'll start with Mr. Neff.
Thank you, Council President. I touched on some of the active projects in the presentation, so I won't go through those. I did just want to mention again, I think I mentioned it previously, the Parkway Exit 105 project. As a reminder, there is a website for that, gspexit105.com. Check there for updates. But generally, they are planning to start shutting down some areas the night of April 19th. So they're going to be closing down the southbound exit from the express lane to Route 36 and the northbound entrance to the express lanes. So essentially, if you can stick to the local lanes, it'll make it easier getting through that exit. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Neff. Do you have anything left in your voice?
Just two quick items that are on the agenda for tonight. The first ordinance for introduction, the 2022-1485. This is something that the borough passes each year as a matter of course. Although we don't need to pass it to adopt the budget, as I noted in my presentation, we are well under the appropriation cap limits. But what it does allow is it also allows us to bank any unused cap. So that just provides flexibility in the future. We have not needed to use that unused cap in the recent past, but it's not good to have that flexibility. So that's my comment on that. And then also in the resolution section, we have resolution 22-088, which is just a resolution authorizing emergency temporary appropriations. All that really does is that just expands our temporary appropriations that we adopted in January, because the temporary appropriations in January are really only good for about 3 months, because statutorily you're limited to 25% of your previous year's budget. So to continue operations, we just need to increase those temporary appropriations to provide a spending mechanism until we adopt our permanent budget. So once we adopt the permanent budget, those appropriations basically go away. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fallon. Mr. Tarapenko, or BA?
Good evening. No report at this time.
Okay. Mr. Starkey, our Director of Law?
I have no report tonight. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Hutchinson, our Borough Clerk?
I have no report this evening. Thank you.
All right. Move on to council reports. Mrs. Clay?
Thank you, Council President. The first thing I wanted to mention is on March 21st, there was a Board of Education meeting, and they had their budget presentation that night. Additionally, I would just like to recognize Mrs. Welsh, who is a school nurse who is going to be retiring. And we know, all of us parents know, that is a thankless job. On March 29th, the Green Team met, and we're in the process of examining specific items on a very detailed matrix and trying to determine which might be items that we're going to be able to pursue. On April 3rd, I hope that's the right date, well, last Saturday, we attended the library fundraiser fashion show, and it was fabulous. I'd like to give a shout out to Ellen Goldberg and the library committee for their hard work. It was a lot of fun, and it was great to be there. And along the lines of shout outs, I wanted to mention that I'm looking forward to the egg hunt on Saturday by Tinton Falls Rec. And especially since our chief is here, I'd like to thank the police department for providing the golden eggs, which I'm sure are going to be a big coveted hit. And thank you to Tom Fallon and Tom Neff for an excellent budget, for your planning and foresight, and for your patience when we have questions, as Council President mentioned. And I'd also like to mention that I'm happy to see contingency money in the budget for our police department should it be needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Clay. Dr. Dobrin?
Thank you. I will also want to commend our CFO, Tom Fallon, for his excellent, comprehensive, and thorough work on this 2022 budget. We are really fortunate in Tinton Falls for Mr. Fallon and Mr. Neff, because they seem to have the best interests of the residents of Tinton Falls as they complete all this year's projects. And on that note, as far as the Tinton Falls Library Association, I know they were very successful this past weekend with the show. I do believe that we're going to have an overview by maybe our chairperson from the fashion show tonight, so I'm not going to say anything more about it, except that, thank you for your work, and we're looking forward to hearing from you tonight. So that's about it for my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dobrin. Mr. Manginelli?
Just echoing the accolades bestowed on Tom Fallon and Tom Neff. We're truly fortunate to have both of you guiding this town and making it probably one of the best towns to live in New Jersey. Excellent presentation. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Manginelli. Mr. Nessie?
Thank you, Council President, and good evening, everybody. First, I have no report for Planning Board, but the next scheduled meeting will be April 13th at 7 p.m. Next, the Chicken Advisory Board. We are very close. We're tying up the final loose ends that will have the applications available for the pilot program. And those who have expressed interest in the program will receive an email from me notifying them that they can submit their applications found on the borough website. For recreation, the Tinton Falls annual egg hunt is scheduled for this Saturday, April 9th at Sycamore Park. It will definitely be a great day, and special thanks to Borough of Tinton Falls for all the goodies and the police department for supplying the golden egg for each of the groups. The event will be filled with lots of smiles, fun goods, and prizes. Hoping everyone will be joining us. Baseball and softball season is here. Little League opening day is scheduled for April 30th. As we have all our teams selected, coaches are squared away with the background checks, and they are Rutgers certified. The fields are getting prepared with the snack stands filled, and we will look forward to a great season. T-ball registration is completed for both pre-ball and T-ball play, and we had an overwhelming response. We'll be contacting the team players soon, and our coaches are also getting prepared to begin. We are coordinating with the program with Coach Miz, and this is a fun-filled program to learn the basics and develop a love for the game of baseball. We are working with Pop Warner Football for spring flag football program at Liberty Park for children ages 5 through 14. The dates and locations have been squared away for our summer camp program. Camp will be held at Atchison along with the Sycamore Park as we enjoy the new pavilion and bathroom at this location. Camp dates will be July 11th through August 11th, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 2 for boys and girls who have completed the kindergarten through grade 8 program or school. We are currently seeking counselors and plan to have registration in May. We're looking forward to offering a great program filled with lots of activities. The rec department encouraged everyone to sign up for the distribution list on our Community Pass registration program, upcoming events and activities. We post our activities on Community Pass, the borough website under Recreation Department, and our Facebook page, and we also send information through the Tinton Falls Board of Education email blast. That concludes my report for this evening, but also I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Fallon for the budget presentation and Mr. Neff for the capital project presentation. You make us look good. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Nessie. Going last, everyone said mostly everything, but I'm going to echo. I was also able to attend the library fundraiser with Councilwoman Clay this past Saturday. It was wonderful. It was so much fun to see the little kids on the catwalk and have a lot of donors and sponsors, which was great to see as well. So kudos to the whole library board on that. And I will buy a brick at some point. Tough to remember. Tinton Falls Environmental Commission this past Saturday as well, right after the library fundraiser, A number of Tinton Falls Environmental Commission members met, and I'd like to thank Andy from the DPW department for also being available, and for pre-cutting osprey nests, and also for DPW Director Mark Shaffrey, that saved the borough a whole bunch of money by getting the two poles that we're going to be putting osprey nests on donated from Famera. So that was awesome. Tinton Falls, we've got some great pictures of Environmental Commission members putting the nest together, and they will be, or at least one of them will be put up this Wednesday. And that is all part of a grant that we have applied for from the New Jersey Association of Environmental Commissions. So, and I also got the report on their congratulations are in order for various police promotions. And I think we all have had a chance to say that May 3rd, I believe, we'll have a ceremony here at the council meeting to congratulate all the officers on their promotions. That is all for my report this evening. Next, we will move on to ordinances for introduction, of which there are 2 this evening. I'd like to remind the public that when an ordinance is introduced, there is no public discussion. The public discussion for the following ordinances will take place when they're up for final consideration. With that, may I ask the clerk to read the title of the first ordinance, please?
2022-1485, ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank, NJSA 40A:4-45.14. The public hearing will be held on April 19, 2022, or as soon thereafter as the matter can be reached on the agenda.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the introduction of the ordinance?
Motion.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Clay?
Yes.
Dr. Dobrin?
Yes.
Mr. Manginelli?
Yes.
Mr. Nessie?
Yes.
Ms. Buckley?
Yes. May I ask the clerk to read the title of the next ordinance?
2022-1486, an ordinance establishing procedures and standards regarding deployment of small wireless facilities in public rights-of-way in the Borough of Tinton Falls. The public hearing will be held on April 19, 2022, or as soon thereafter as the matter can be reached on the agenda.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the introduction of this ordinance?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Clay?
Yes.
Dr. Dobrin?
Yes.
Mr. Manginelli?
Yes.
Mr. Nessie?
Yes.
Ms. Buckley?
Yes. There are no ordinances on for final consideration this evening, which brings us to the public discussion. May I have a motion to open the public discussion?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, heard Mr. Nessie for the first and Mr. Manginelli for the second. All in favor?
Aye.
This is the time the public may comment on any topic of their choice. Please state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone with us this evening who would like to make a comment? Feel free to come up to the podium. Has to be somebody. There's a lot of people in the audience.
Might as well go first. Good evening, Ellen Goldberg, 90 Glenwood Drive. Before I give my report on our library fundraiser, I would like to give a special thanks to Mr. Neff, and he knows why. I think I've been asking to have Glenwood Drive paved for the last 4 years, and I am doing the happy dance, seriously. Doing the happy dance, and my husband's home doing his happy dance. So thank you, and thank you both for a wonderful presentation. I want to truly thank Ms. Buckley and Ms. Clay for coming out to support our library fundraiser on Saturday. It meant so much to us to have you there and represent our borough, and just being there, and I apologize because I should have said something when I was making the announcements to our residents, but I do want to tell you, thank you so much for being there. Really appreciated that. The fundraiser fashion show was a huge success. The parents, the kids, even our volunteers that came out could not say enough nice things about it. And I sent an email around to the parents of our models, and I said that I was going to make a presentation tonight, and if they wanted me to say anything, and I just have to read some of the comments that were sent back to me. It was an amazing kids' fashion show, a memorable experience, and a great cause. Good job. First of all, thanks a lot for all you've done. This is directed to me, myself, for all you've done for our kids and for the library. The event went great, and both kids and parents were really happy to be a part of it. All the work you've done for our library is amazing. Our child enjoyed being a model. It was her dream to be on stage, and it came true because of this beautiful event. Our family were very impressed by your organization of the event. Everyone was so kind, and it was a really great atmosphere. We will be happy to participate again next year. Another one was, we thought the fashion show was a huge success, and I can't believe how much fun the models had on the runway. My daughter has not stopped talking about it. Feel free to, I'm sorry. Your son did an outstanding job as MC, and his quick wit and funny unscripted commentary was a pleasure. Thank you for all your hard work in organizing this event. And the last one I want to read to you really touched my heart, because as much as I put the time, and all of the volunteers from the library put the time and energy into it, there are things that came out of this event that didn't even occur to me. Thank you for all your hard work and for what you've done for 3 years now. Not only are you helping our kids to have a better place to read and study soon, you are boosting their confidence and morale. My daughter started modeling in your first show when she was in kindergarten. I signed her up to help her with her self-esteem and confidence so she could be open to new things and become more outgoing. She was very shy when she started school, and she had to go to 3 different schools. But just her exposure in this fundraiser made a huge impact on her life. She is now outgoing and friendly, and she talks about this modeling to all the kids in school that are shy just like she was. Thank you, Ellen. Not enough words for how grateful my family is. Yeah. So that said, I don't have a total on the number of attendees. We're still kind of putting numbers together, but there was approximately 150 people. And I don't have the amount of money that was raised yet. That's also still being put together. But the whole thing ran so smoothly. The children had excellent behavior. I mean, they were outstanding. The volunteers could not have been better. And I want to once again thank the library board, hardworking, helpful, caring, dedicated, and selfless individuals that I am more than proud and pleased to be a part of. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Goldberg. Is there any other member of the public that would like to make a comment this evening?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Gabriel, 44 Periwinkle Circle.
Hi, Gabriel.
Me and my family have been, we've been residents for 23 years here now. And, you know, we love our community, and we've always participated in events, went to school, all of us. And recently, in the past couple of years, the parking ordinance has been really taking an effect with the police station and with us specifically. At first, it was just a neighbor that kept complaining about us, and then once I told the other police officers, you know, I understand everyone is doing their job, they started giving warnings out to everyone else. And so now I don't want this to have to extend out to everyone, to other neighbors. And the police is coming to our house at 3 in the morning every night for the past couple of weeks now. And I just want to know if there's any action that can be taken towards it as far as trying to be a little more lenient with the ordinance or the reason behind it. I don't want to waste time, you know, with the police officers. I don't want the dispatchers, you know, to be holding up the lines and everyone have to call in their cars and be able to park, and, you know, to be parking in front of our own house. I don't understand why it has to be an issue, you know? Well, as kids, you know, obviously, there's only a couple of cars with the parents, but then when the kids get older, they all get their own cars, and then the driveways are so small, you can only park so many cars. That's the comment that I wanted to make, and I wanted to make sure that it's...
So when you say the parking ordinances, there are a couple, so I'm assuming this is the overnight parking ordinance?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, and I think someone had mentioned that in one of the prior meetings, so I don't know if anyone else has any comments to make, but I appreciate your comments, and I think that is something that, it hasn't been updated in a long time. I want to say 1982, so that is something that we want to take a look at and potentially revise, and we appreciate any of the comments or suggestions that you have during that process.
Okay, so you guys will just continue to talk about it in the next meetings?
We
or-
haven't talked about it at all, actually, so this had recently just come up, so, but in some just offline conversations, it was when we saw that the police had posted they were going to begin to enforce overnight parking, it was, we just kind of had a general realization that the ordinance hasn't been updated since 1982, so we probably should take a look at some of those older ordinances and potentially update them. I know, well, my understanding is that part of it had to do with the width of the various roads, but I don't know if there's any other background that anyone else would like to comment on. We haven't looked at it yet, but Mr. Tarafanko, or did you have any, or Mr. Starkey, did you have any other comments, or that's sufficient at this time?
No, but we'll take a look at it and report back in the next meeting or two with,
Yeah, because I know there were
Steps.
there were a couple of different parking ordinances, so we should just take a look at all of them together and see
Right.
what makes sense.
okay,
Yep.
we'll do.
And
And
I
what was
just
your-
wanted to make one last comment.
Okay.
The police officers that have showed up, they've all been, you know, they've been terrific. You know, they've been very cooperative. That I know that they're just trying to do their jobs. But they have all agreed that, you know, the ordinance should be changed or updated because they feel bad having to leave warnings or tickets or having to come at 3 in the morning every night.
Okay.
But I just wanted to, I'm not trying to point any fingers at the police either. I
Understood.
think they've been very cooperative.
Awesome, thank you. And Gabriel, what was your last name? You said 44 Periwinkle?
Sanchez.
Okay, cool. All right.
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. Hello, everyone. Nancy Ann Fama, 36 Gallant Fox Road. I want to really extend my thanks to the administration for a well-thought-out and very fiscally sound budget. We've come to expect this from you, Mr. Fallon, and you do not disappoint, so thank you. I was very happy to hear that there might be some extra monies in the budget for additional police officers. This is something that is very important to this community. I know that you've all received our letters from concerned residents about our great police force and wanting to continue to support them in their mission to keeping Tinton Falls the safest and best town in the state. So I'm wondering what I can be told and this group can be told about the specifics of those extra funds.
There's no specifics as to yet. We just wanted to make sure that the extra funds were in there should they be needed.
Okay.
So like we said at the last meeting, Chief DeLucia is in the process of hiring the backfills, and then they'll be conducting an assessment as to whether or not additional officers would be needed. We wanted to, and we appreciate the mayor also agreeing to add in additional funds to show you that it will be there and it will be budgeted for, should that need arise, so.
So when will we know that? Because if the public hearing is May 3rd and it's now April 5th, when will we know what the police department is presenting, I guess now to council, to consider additional headcount? I understand that there are promotions and there are backfills.
So, well, the budget was an additional 300, right?
That's correct.
Additional $300,000 we put in the budget.
Okay.
So that should cover anything that we would need, at least this year. So that's the figure that was added.
So that number that was added would then have to be addressed between now and May 3rd, is what I'm saying, for headcount. I don't know if 300,000 adds 3 cops, 30 cops, 300 cops. You know, as a resident, we hear extra money, trying to understand how that now translates into bodies.
Yeah, well, we don't have, the analysis hasn't been done yet, so we don't have that at this point. What we did put into this
Right, so
budget
I guess
introduction.
what I'm saying is between now and May 3rd, that should be made more clear. Is that right?
The funds are already in there to be proposed, so it's not like, I'm not sure that I'm clear on your question. We added the 300
I'm
in
trying to
with the
understand how
introduction.
that translates to head count.
That would be separate from approving the budget, though. Like I'm not tying this to a May 3rd date is what I'm not. So analysis will be conducted. I don't have a timeline on that. I don't know if Mr. Terrafranco, you want to address anything around that yet?
Sure, Council President. So, Mrs. Fama, what we're doing is we're backfilling the complement officers that we need. And once we're at full staffing, the chief and I are going to do that assessment. And once that assessment's complete, we're going to present it to the council and the mayor for review. And obviously, then you folks will have an opportunity to weigh in on the review. But in all fairness, we can't do that until we're at our full complement of officers to do a proper assessment. So once we're at that complement of officers and they're out there functioning in the capacity that we need them to function in, we'll be doing this assessment to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the community. And like I said, in all fairness, we can't do that without making sure we're at our full complement. And by the ordinance, it's no more than 28 officers
28.
as it stands now.
Right.
So once we get to that full staffing, we'll have a good gauge on where we are, calls for service, call volume, things like that, and making sure we meet the needs of the community.
So I think what we've done is we've presented to the town an analysis of the over 1,000 households that have been added in the last 20 years with a patrol strength that has remained constant in that 20-year period. So I understand and appreciate that you're backfilling because due to promotions, and I also understand that you've added 2 bodies based on that prior ordinance. What I'm saying is when I hear that there's another $300,000 in the budget, I'm hopeful that that will add to the 28 officers, because in our view, the 26 and the 28 is insufficient for the growth in the population here and also the commercial entities that now drag on the borough. So when you're saying, well, we want to backfill, I understand that, but why does, we kind of know where we're at with 26 people. We know adding 2 more people to that mix is not going to make an appreciable difference. So I'm looking at the 300,000 saying, well, can we be adding officers in this analysis that you're going to be doing now? And not have to wait until now you get your full complement of 28 and then do an analysis, and we're looking for relief now.
And I totally understand that, but like I said, in fairness to the new police chief who just got appointed, he has to undergo that study, we have to do the assessment, but we have to do it with the full complement of people that are operating in the community in order to, in fairness, be fiscally responsible. And for us, what that entails is looking at the police services, the calls for service, the response times, and things like that. I understand the community has grown, but that doesn't necessarily automatically translate into automatically hiring officers. We have to substantiate the need. In order to do that, we're gathering the data and we're doing this assessment as we speak.
I understand that. I would argue that the need has demonstrated itself with what's going on with car thefts, break-ins, attempted break-ins, thefts from locked garages. And this is no slight on the police department. So our whole effort with our community has been to lay out quantitatively how this town has increased in population and also in commercial requirement. And so what you're saying now is you just, at this point, you have an extra $300,000 in the budget. It's not earmarked for additional bodies, so that may or may not be taken up with.
Mrs. Fama, if I may, just because we're at time, we hear you. We can't just pick a number out of the hat. 4,
Right.
6, 25, 50, that wouldn't be the responsible thing to do.
Right.
So this analysis will have to be performed. That's not going to necessarily happen in a month.
Okay.
Because the priority is hiring, the hiring process that the chief is currently undergoing to actively interview and hire those officers. We want him to focus on that Not to say that it hasn't begun, it may have, but I don't think putting a date of May 3rd would be the responsible thing to do. I want them to be able to complete the analysis and hire their officers, do it in a timely fashion, yes. We added the 300,000 as a good faith effort. You have the council support for whatever you need, okay? But I ask you to allow that process to play out and not put an arbitrary date of May 3rd on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen?
First and foremost, appreciate just being recognized by this body. My name is Josh Walter. I live at 30 Whirlaway Drive in Tinton Falls. I've been a resident of Tinton Falls for 7 years. I've never done this before, come to a council meeting. I felt compelled to do so just by the nature of what's happened to us personally at our house, over the past few months and beyond. And say thank you to the chief and recognize some of the police officers that have responded to our house. I'm the house that's been hit 3 times over the past 12 months. I've had a vehicle taken from my garage in January. February, my home was broken into as we were away on an overnight by 2 intruders. Stole a ton of stuff from our house that'll never be recovered. As recent as 3 weeks ago, police officers responded to our home because my son, who's 4 years old, hit his head. So we've definitely taken advantage of the services delivered to us by the police department over the past few months. I think the need in just addressing, your comment and by, full respect, Tracy, I'm sorry, Mrs. Buckley, the need has arrived for us to address this issue, and an analysis that might take 6-12 months, to me as a resident who obviously has been impacted by this acutely, is unacceptable. My understanding is that, our town has grown significantly, both commercially and in occupants and in homes over the past 15 years. The police force, in terms of the patrol units, have stayed relatively the same from 2003. I think it was 26. Today it's around 26, and we need to backfill or rehire to get to 28. Listen, my next door neighbor directly to my left has had 2 cars taken. 4 houses up the street was an attempted a month ago. Across the street from that individual was another attempted. Down the street, a break-in. There's been 8 cars taken from our community alone of 110 houses over the past 24 months. My concern is that as this town opens up post-COVID, as we move into the summer months when things start to get warm, people start to move around, go to the beach, let their guard down, this is only going to increase again. And so we've seen an increased police presence be a determinant in our community. It's calmed down a little bit, but we know that these individuals are going to be back, and they're going to be back in force, taking advantage of our community. And so I get that this body needs to be fiscally responsible. I understand the analysis that needs to take place, but I'm just saying, and I am imploring this body to actually do something about it and give the chief more resources, more officers to patrol our streets, because our community has just gotten more complex. There's more commercial, there's more people in this community to serve. And so, again, I understand the complexity of your jobs, but in my view, this body should do something, and do something fast and meaningful, and not have to wait for 6 to 12 months to get another 2 police officers. The police officers that I've encountered have been nothing short of fantastic. Detective Mills, Officer Daly, I'd like to call out specifically, among others that I've interacted with, unfortunately, over the past 6 months. They're frustrated. We are missing these folks by seconds or minutes. And if we had a couple of bodies, additionally, more officers on the street, those chances of catching these individuals, number 1, are going to go up. Number 2, deter these individuals from coming to our community and doing what they're doing. And my fear is that if we just stay status quo, and then I'll stop, is it's going to be more than just the cars, right? I think I'm not concerned about the cars. I'm concerned about people entering our homes, becoming more brazen, knowing that they can get away with what they're getting away with, and that, God forbid, somebody is home with children, a mother, somebody who's not expecting this, and they're going to have an interaction with these individuals, and it's going to turn into a result that none of us wants. And so I'm just here to ask and implore that this body actually does something about it, either finds budget from somewhere that we're not seeing, or gives the chief just more people on the streets and allows us to feel safe in our homes. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments, and we're very unfortunate to hear what's happened. What I can just say is the council's responsibility is to change the ordinance to put a different number of patrol cops in there, okay? Which we are all, nod your heads in agreement, the chief says. These are the officers that we need. We will, one second, we will increase them just like we did last year per the chief's request. So you have our word that we will do that. We don't perform the analysis, the administration performs the analysis, and they will undertake that. I have full faith and confidence in them that they will do so. If they come back and say, we need X amount of officers, you have all of our support here, that we will quickly amend the ordinance to do so. Mr. Manginelli?
Clearly, Council President, I think the residents are not hearing the urgency from us that they're expressing here tonight, and they're just looking to get this something done as quickly as they can. I understand this analysis has to take place, but if that's an ongoing problem, I think we have to get a little more urgent about it.
Okay, how would you suggest that we do that?
I'll
We introduce an
direct
ordinance and then we approve
that
it in the next
question to
meeting?
the administrator.
So to answer your question, Councilman, we're already in the process of doing that, the chief and I. So with the 2 new captains that were recently promoted, we're already breaking down the calls for service, call volume, and things that would affect policing in general. So we're going to have a handle on that in the near future. I don't want to be beholden to a strict timeline because of the backfills that we need to do, and it's an ongoing process, but it's going to be sooner rather than later.
I can understand that, but this gentleman is talking about 6 to 12 months.
Well, it's not going to be 6 to 12 months, and what I can tell you is we've already reallocated our deployment strategy to meet the needs of the community, and which was expressed by the residents. We have over 120 directed patrols in that particular neighborhood since the onset of these incidents. So I think we're addressing the issue in its immediacy as best we can, and we're going to continue to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Denise Catalano, 11 Alpine Trail. I have to say, hearing that last report about the number of break-ins in his development is horrifying to me. As somebody who's lived in this town for 33 years plus, I even had a car stolen out of my driveway many, many years ago. But hearing that there's 8 cars in one little development and houses being broken into, it's horrifying. And I think you certainly have to do something quick. In response to Ms. Fama's comments, I want to remind you, the council, a couple of months ago, you approved the sale of having marijuana dispensaries in this town. And you mentioned that there were additional cops that would be used for such facilities. And I think you also said that there was going to be one on duty at certain facilities, et cetera, at all times. So when we talk about houses being broken in, 300,000 extra money, and now we're going to have marijuana sales and dispensaries and whatever, you really need to move on this real quick. And I agree with the councilman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Catalano. Any other members of the public?
Joe Farmer, 36 Gallon Fox Road. Just a couple of quick questions. I know you've mentioned $300,000 additional dollars, is that correct?
That's correct.
So the 2021 budget for the police department was $5.5 million. So it's for 2022, it's $5.8 million. Is that correct?
I can answer that. No,
Sure.
because of the retirements and filling those, so you have retirements that are of officers that are at very high levels, and we're filling in new officers at a lower grade. There is a substantial savings in the year. We just happen to have a lot of them this year. It's generally not that much. So, you know, the police budget would have gone down by about $300,000. So that the initial budget with our current complement of officers at the borough's adopted ordinance for those complement of officers was $5.2 million. So an additional $300,000 was added as a placeholder, shall we say, contingent placeholder for whatever officers may need to be added based upon their review and study.
So there's been no increase to the budget? This is just savings due to head count and how it broke out with retirements and whatever else. But the budget itself, the structural budget, had no increase in dollars. Is that correct?
I'm not sure that I follow the question,
Okay.
but from the time we originally got the...
$5.5 million budgeted in 2021. You only spent 5.2. There was a surplus because of turnover. Going into the next fiscal year, the budgeted amount is still 5.5.
I'm sorry, I don't think I explained it properly.
Tom?
In 2021...
Tom, 2021, what was the budgeted amount? Budgeted.
It was $5.5 million.
Okay, stop there. What is the budgeted amount in 2022? Budgeted.
$5.5 million.
Okay, so there's no increase. There's no increase to the budget.
So,
I hope the council members are not satisfied with that.
So, Mr. Fama, the original budget we got, keeping everything flat, would have reduced it $300,000.
No, it would not have reduced the
if I may
budget.
finish.
No, there's a difference between budget and actual, right? Your budgeted amount is one thing, what you actually spend is something else. The fact that you spent less than budgeted doesn't mean the budget should reduce. Because if you were at full head count, you would have had no savings.
No,
So you don't understand the difference between budgeted and actual, okay? So if the budget in 2021 was 5.5 million, and the budget in 2022 is 5.5 million, there's no increase to the budget. Isn't that correct, Mr. Fowler? To the budget.
To the budget, you are correct.
Thank you. That should not be acceptable to this council. It's not acceptable to the residents.
Thank you,
You
Mr. Fama.
cannot count on having turnover to savings and say, oh, there's more money. It's not more money. It's just what's unspent, budgeted versus actual. I would like to see the budget increased for a structural increase to the head count. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fama. Did you want to make any other comments, Mr. Fallon? Because I'm just...
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What would it have been budgeted before the $300,000 increase for the police that we need today?
So in 2021, we budgeted the 5.5 million, and we did spend close to the 5.5 million. This year, because of the changes in personnel and the promotions and the retirements and bringing in the new officers to fill the full complement of authorized officers pursuant to our ordinance, the budget would have been 5.2 million.
Right.
The mayor, consulting with council, added $300,000 for new police officers. And that gives a lot of leeway to the number of officers that could be hired, because they're not going to be hired until later on in the year. And a new officer doesn't come in at a salary, a very high,
At the highest,
extremely
right.
high salary,
Mhm.
yeah.
So after officer retirements, a full budget would have been 5.2, right, for a full staff of officers. But then we brought it back up to 300, which would have been the savings, which is going to contribute towards hiring new officers, right?
Correct.
That is correct. There is 300,000. If you look at the detail of the 2022 police salary and wage budget, there's a line item in there for 300,000 for the hiring of additional police officers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thank you.
So the money is there. We would still need to redo the ordinance to increase the patrol numbers, but we need the analysis to know what that number would be. And then once we have that, we introduce an ordinance and we pass an ordinance at the next meeting.
Right.
So-
Just like we passed it before.
Just like we passed it last year when the chief asked us, so. It's the same process. There's not the hindrance here.
Hi, Jack Casey. I'm from 46 Higher Stakes Drive, same
Jack.
development where a lot of this crime has been happening. I'm kind of getting frustrated sitting back there, listening to what Mr. Fama just said, that those numbers that you just came out with, he's correct, the $300,000 is being created by retirement. So
Yeah.
you're not,
And, you know, I don't,
you're not adding to the budget, it's a savings that you're reinvesting in officers
and,
that
you
are
know,
going to refill the roster to bring it to the exact same number where it was at.
and I will say, you know, I don't want to, certainly don't want to argue anything. I'm the CFO.
No, I'm not arguing, but it
the
was
administrator.
kind of
But
misrepresented.
I will say that the all municipalities, whether it's be in their public works department, in their police department, I've been doing this for 30 years, all municipalities, they really, you know, based upon these retirements, they really depend on those to maintain some type of stability in their budget and in taxes. You can imagine
Totally
if,
understand.
yeah, you can imagine if you had a $200,000 employee retire and then say, oh, well, you know, we can now hire 4 new people for that 200,000. Well, those 4 new people in 5 years, you know, cost you, you know, $600,000. So you can't.
You also have promotions who are going to get
And those are all
increased
figured in.
wages.
Yep, they're absolutely
So in the end,
promotions.
you end up with the same roster. So what Mr.
100%.
Fama is saying is, we need to increase the budget to increase the roster,
We've
the
allowed-
amount of police.
We've allowed for an additional $300,000, or the mayor has, in this budget to hire additional police officers. So that is real appropriation.
So they would be considered, I guess, starting, let's call them rookies, you would bring in new personnel?
We would bring in new patrolmen. I believe that's what the request is for, patrol officers.
And what can $300,000 bring
Well,
as far as bodies?
really, it depends on when they're hired and how many, but it gives a lot of leeway because a step 1 officer comes in at $42,000.
Okay, that's what I figured it'd be around, yeah. I mean, we all have to agree, I think most of us here are residents of Tinton Falls. When you hear these stories, I would think everybody here agrees that safety is our #1 priority. And really, the only way to accomplish that is to increase our police force, which is 2 bodies more than when I first moved into our neighborhood in 2003. It was 26, I believe now it's 28. Neighborhood has totally changed as far as size. Obviously, there's been a lot of construction. There's all new developments. There's one right down the block from here. I don't even know how many people that's bringing into town, but there's got to be 1,000 at least. We have the 55 and over development up the block. We have the new, let's call it town center with all the restaurants, bars. That's actually been there for several years now. I think we are a pretty safe town. Unfortunately, things have changed recently. And it's changing all throughout the state, not just our town, but I think we have to be proactive before, like was said earlier, before something bad does happen, because it is bound to happen, whether it happens to the person that owns the house or the person that happens to come into the wrong house, so to speak. We don't want that to happen either, but confrontations, things happen. So I hope you really take this seriously. I know you have to do your checks and balances here, but I think there's plenty of proof right there. That gentleman had to go through a lot to get to this point that we're here. I know the whole neighborhood is kind of on edge at the moment. Police department's done a great job. They have been flooding our area for a couple weeks now, and we haven't had any incidents, but obviously that won't go on forever. And the only way to kind of keep that going a little bit, and not just our area, though, all of Tinton Falls, is to increase body count so that we can have more police on the road, on the streets at one time than there are now, because just not enough at the moment. I hope you all understand that, and I hope we're all on the same page. Thank you.
Thank
Let me tell you what I do understand, it's oversimplified. I understand there's $300,000 in the budget, and that's to hire more policemen. Is that oversimplification?
That is accurate.
So, Mr. Councilman, I'd just like a bit of clarity here. That 5.2 that was originally mentioned, that would bring us up to the full complement as per the ordinance as it stands. The contingent amount of 300,000 is to go above and beyond as the ordinance stands, should the need arise, and if it gets approved by the mayor and council.
Okay, so, but simplification again, 300,000 would permit us to hire more police officers.
Above and beyond what the ordinance
Right,
already stipulates.
So what's been done in the interim is we've increased patrols in that neighborhood, and that has solved some of the problem. So is it safe to say you would stay with those increased patrols?
Council President, can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead, Chief.
Folks, just to let you know, Mr. Delafranco, the mayor, and the council have been very, very pro. They're always pro-police, but since February 1st, I was appointed. Right? They have not hesitated one bit on promotions. We have 67 resumes out there for new cops that we're going to close the resume applications on April 11th. Okay? A lot of you know me here. I'm a resident here as well. I have, when we do this analysis, which will be a lot sooner, I am on it. We have changed patrol taxes. We've changed manpower issues. That 28, now remember, is corporals and patrolmen. That doesn't count sergeants, lieutenants, captains, and myself. So there are patrol sergeants, and patrol lieutenants that are out there roaming the town as well. Okay? I just ask everyone, be patient. They've been overly, whatever you need, Mike, whatever you need. When we get the promotions done, we've got 2 captains done, we have 4 lieutenants done yesterday. Sergeant interviews start next week, and we promoted 6 sergeants in the next 2 weeks, and then we're going to move on to hiring. All right? I just ask everyone to be patient. It will be sooner, I promise you. And then we'll sit down, we'll go over different patrol techniques, different areas that need extra patrol during different times. We'll assess it, Mr. Telefranco says, and I promise you, I will have no hesitation coming to the mayor, Mr. Telefranco, and this council and saying, I need this X amount of police officers to run this department correctly and keep our town safe. I promise you that. I will have no hesitation. Okay. Anybody, I'm always available. Any more questions, please come to the police department, sit down, we'll talk. Anything you ever need, I'm always here for you guys.
What's your name?
Mike DeLucia.
It's our police chief.
Chief, is there a time frame by which you're going to determine that? I mean, when will that be?
Time frame for assessment?
Yeah, if you may, Chief, I mean,
I can't lock down a time
Chief.
frame on it. It's just going to be, it's not going to be 6 months to a year, I promise you.
I appreciate your input, Chief. I think we've covered this issue for this evening. If there's any additional questions, please feel free to email us. If there's another public comment, please step up to the
Hi,
podium.
Ellen Silver, 22 Whirlaway Drive. I think what has been missed is not the extra 300,000, which is great that it's there, but I think we're talking as a neighborhood, as a community, to increase the budget of the police department. Since all of the residents have increased in the last 15 years, the police force hasn't. I think that budget has to be increased as well, not just the 300,000.
Mr. Fallon,
You
Go ahead.
know, maybe I could just throw out some data. So we're looking at 20 years ago. The budget, the police department was, just the salary and wages and pension was about 21.23%. That doesn't include other benefits, health benefits. Was about 21.23% of that year's total budget, okay? Last year's total budget, those same numbers, the salary and wages and the pension, were 26.44. So although there hasn't been, and again, I don't set policy, I'm just the CFO. But although there hasn't been a large, increase in the patrolmen or in the total staffing of the police department, it's only really gone up about 6 officers over those years in total. The percentage allocated of the borough's budget has increased as it relates to that department.
What is the percentage 2022? 2020.
I would have to, I don't have that, I just have 21 here.
What
I don't
is
have-
the percentage for 21?
26.
It was 26.44, and that doesn't include all the costs, that's just their salary and wages and the pension costs, not the health benefits and the other ancillary costs. But, so, I guess I'm just throwing out there, because although, you know, the officer numbers hasn't increased, the cost, you know, the borough has allocated more resources towards that department, so, for what that's worth.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Fallon.
Hi, I'm Tara Tote from 10 Fifth Place. I'd like to start by congratulating the chief. I hadn't heard that yet, so congratulations. I think the whole police department does a great job. I did not plan on speaking tonight, but after hearing the gentleman with his stories and the break-ins and, you know, him needing help with a 4-year-old, I want to know when I go to bed at night that if I have an emergency and I have to call 911, that we're going to have the police officers at our house right away. I'm fortunate enough to be one of the ones that never had to have that. My in-laws are here in the town. We've had to call 911 for them before. They're always there. And I would just like to know that I'd feel comfortable knowing that everybody gets that same kind of, you know, treatment. I'm not getting special treatment, but it's during the day. So at nighttime, what I heard tonight really makes me concerned, and I can't sit back and not stand up for these people. I'm not here with the group that came out to talk about, you know, the issue. I am one for not parking cars on the street. That's been here for a very long time. I like that because I know that there's not supposed to be any cars parked on my street. So if there is, and all the neighbors know that that car doesn't belong there, then we know there's an issue. It's happened a few times years ago, and when the police did check out that car, it didn't belong there, and there was issues afterwards. So I do like that, you know, that they do not let cars be parked on the street. But I just needed to stand up for these guys, you know, and also the police department. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Tote. Yes, Ms. Carney?
Something completely different. Mrs. Carney, Shade Tree Commission, and I wanted you to know we were awarded Tree City for the 29th year.
Yes, we were.
Thanks to the Public Works, Jill, and all the other people.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep, we have the Arbor Day.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Mrs. Carney.
Congratulations. Thank you and the Shade Tree for all your work. Yes, sir.
Good night. I'm Gabriel Sanchez from 44 Periwinkle.
Hey, Gabriel.
And I just want to say something hearing about all these people, you know, about, you know, the safe. I need you guys need to really take and do something about, you know, the ornaments for parking night, on the parking on the street, Because yesterday, the police officers came.
Just step up to the
came
mic.
around 3
There you go.
o'clock in the morning because somebody called that I have parked my car and my son's car, my other son, on the street, and we've been parking there for the last 23 years. And the police were sitting over there for probably for a half hour. And the only reason that I know this because my neighbor sent me the text and said, Gabriel, you are about to get a ticket, I think, because you're parking on the street. My point is that the police came, and, you know, I went outside when they got the ticket for my car, and we were talking, I tried to explain to them, so we wasted probably a couple hours just talking about the issue. And my point is why they are wasting their time when somebody called that somebody's, or I'm being parked in front of my house. I think you got to do something about that, change that law or enforcement, because police is not worried about, you know, taking care of the real problem here. You know, it doesn't make any sense for me. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yep, we will be.
You know what I'm
taking
saying? You really you have to do something about it, you know, because it doesn't make any sense.
Yep. No, we understand. We'll be taking a look at all of the overnight parking ordinances to see what makes sense.
Because it's all a problem. I told the officers, why are you wasting your time here at my house, where I live? You should be taking care of other problems, real problems, not that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Did you have if you'd like to make another comment, you can come up to the podium.
Hi. Adam Silver, 22 Whirlaway Drive. I'm
Hi, Adam.
from the Willowbrook community, and I just wanted to maybe help address this gentleman's comments that he made, and I think I know where this is all started to develop from, because we've had this ordinance in town, it just hasn't been enforced. But the problem is in our neighborhood, what's going on is it's just not them coming into our neighborhood and immediately identifying a car or a house to break into. They're casing our neighborhood during the day. One of our neighbors, 12:30 in the afternoon, she had her car running in her driveway. She just ran into her house just to get something. When she ran back out, the car was gone. They stole the car. So some of my other neighbors are telling me that they see unusual, strange, tinted windowed cars sitting in front of their house, and as they walk out and approach the car, they pull away. So I think what happened is one of our neighbors said that, listen, if the state can't help us out by changing some of the laws that grant these kids that are coming into our neighborhood and causing these crimes, if they're not going to help us out and change these laws, this bail reform laws, well, we have to take it into our own hands. And one of our neighbors, smart, said, well, maybe we should enforce that street parking ordinance. Now, I'm not saying we should enforce it for innocent people like this, but I don't know what the solution is, but something needs to be done because it's happening during the day too. And there's mothers in our neighborhood and there's children in our neighborhood. They're walking through the neighborhood. They're concerned. They're very concerned that something's going to happen, and something is going to happen eventually. When it happens, the time is not to react after, the time's to react before. So just wanted to say my piece and try to explain where that might have come about from.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Silver. Is there any other members of the public who would like to make a comment?
I just want to say that someone suggested parking permits, and that's a good idea. That way,
If you'd like to make a comment, you can come up to the podium again.
Sorry.
Needs to be picked up by the microphone.
Sorry. Someone suggested.
Sorry, just for the record, you are Mr. Sanchez.
Gabriel Sanchez, 44 Periwinkle Circle.
Thank you.
Somebody did suggest parking permits, which is a good idea. Like I said before, that way the police aren't wasting their time figuring out if there's random strangers parked in the neighborhood. And that way, the residents that do live at their home or in that neighborhood, it's not an issue. And then it's a lot easier to identify an unknown vehicle, and that creates more time for the officers to be patrolling those neighborhoods that are getting targeted for the robberies. I just thought that was a really good suggestion. I just wanted to say that.
It's a good idea. We'll take a look at it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yes, in some neighborhoods where parking is an issue, that would probably resolve that situation. There are other neighborhoods where parking is not a problem. So in those neighborhoods where there's crowding, permits may be just the way to go. And that would be at least, because again, we don't want strange cars parking overnight in front of our houses. That would just exacerbate the situation that we have at Willowbrook. So, that's a good point. Good point. We'll take it up in conversation, President.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Denise Catalano, 11 Alpine. Just one clarification on the parking permits, because we both kind of came up with the idea, but here's the key point of it. You register a car with a specific license plate and an address that matches the address of the resident, so that you know that that car really belongs there, not somebody just comes off the street and says, I need a parking permit, and then they can go park wherever they want. So it has to be a control thing to think of, and I'm certainly willing to brainstorm with anybody.
Yeah, there's a number of good ideas we can throw around here with regard to that. Mr. Neff, did you want to comment?
Yeah, just with the no parking. I mean, I wasn't involved when this was written back in the early 80s.
I think we were both children.
Yeah. something that no one's mentioned, or maybe someone did, but it's a lot of it has to do with the width of the road also. If you just grant parking permits for certain neighborhoods, or you do away with the ordinance completely, and you say everyone can park on the streets, there could be issues with cars being able to pass. Because when you prohibit the parking overnight, you essentially limit the overall parking on the streets. You're only going to get someone coming to park on the street, visiting a house for a little bit, a couple hours during the day. If you allow it overnight, you just need to realize that those cars are then going to be there much more frequently. They're going to be there every night. They're going to be there all day potentially. So in order to really do this, you have to do almost a study on every block of every road in the town. And
We need another engineering study.
That's a significant study, having someone go out, measure because even every road has different widths sometimes. Some
Yeah.
sections of one end are longer than the other, so I understand the thought. A lot more people have cars than they used to. Back in the 80s, kids are all getting cars when they turn 17 right away, whereas in the past, they used to share a car with the parents maybe.
Mhm.
So it's definitely an issue, but I just want to caution that it's not an easy solution.
Yeah, I believe, because some of the roads, you need the emergency vehicles, fire trucks and so forth to be
Right,
able to pass
because how
by.
do you
And
pick
you
and
wouldn't be
choose?
able to if there were cars parked.
Picking and choose which side of the street you have to look at then, because essentially you would need then 4 lanes of traffic.
Yep.
Is that overseen by the DOT as well?
There's guidelines based on how wide the roads need to be in RSIS, Residential Site Improvement Standards.
I think we need a good brainstorming session on potential options here. All right, thank you, I appreciate that. Appreciate the comments and input and ideas and suggestions. Any other members of the public? Okay. I don't think we had any additional written comments from folks that were not here.
No, everyone was here.
All right. Hearing no further comments, may I have a motion to close the public discussion?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Clay. Thank you, Mr. Dobrin. All in favor?
Aye.
Miscellaneous business. Does any member of council have anything to add? Okay, hearing none. We have one resolution to be voted on separately this evening. May I have the clerk read the title?
Resolution R22-87, introduction of the 2022 municipal budget.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion.
Thank
Second.
you. Thank you for the second. May I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Clay?
Yes.
Dr. Dobrin?
Yes.
Mr. Manginelli?
Yes.
Mr. Nessie?
Yes.
Ms. Buckley?
Yes. Before we move on to the consent agenda, are there any items any member of council would like to be removed and voted on separately? Okay, hearing none. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Clay. May I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Clay?
Yes.
Dr. Dobrin?
Yes.
Mr. Manginelli?
Yes.
Mr. Nessie?
Yes.
Ms. Buckley?
Yes. Thank you. There is no workshop this evening, no executive session this evening. So this concludes today's business. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Thank you. May I have a
Second.
second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. This meeting is now adjourned at 9:23 PM. Have a good evening, everybody.